The logical strategy to many women, as they awaited the passage of the ERA, was to turn to the 14th Amendment. Ratified in 1867, the 14th Amendment provided that no person could be denied equal protection and due process on account of race. Many Supreme Court decisions over the years signaled the court's unwillingness to add sex to the persons protected by the amendment. But in the mid-60s, Title VII had opened the door to its inclusion. Our friend Pauli Murray then developed the argument that women's functions might bring them more fully under the amendment's protective shadow. If, after all, race could be protected by the 14th Amendment, she argued, and people could be guaranteed due process because they were Black, then why not guarantee mothers due process? The argument took hold in the early 1970s, when mothers became the majority of new female entrants into the labor force. If in 1950 the wage labor force included barely 1 in 10 mothers of children under school age, by 1970 it included 3 of every 10 such mothers. 5 years later, they were joined by 4 of every 10 mothers of children under the age of 5. Today, that figure has reached 60%. But in the 1970s, the idea that mothers could be in the wage labor force in an unprotected status without special considerations was far more bothersome than the idea of including them in the 14th Amendment. Copying strategies used by the civil rights movement to open jobs to minorities, feminists turned to affirmative action legislation. Executive orders and court decrees demanding and implementing affirmative action were used sporadically in the 60s in race-based agreements. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, for example, had issued a path-breaking order in 1961, urging federal contractors to take affirmative steps to correct racial disparities in their workforces. By 1969, such plans received the imprimatur of the courts, creating targets for hiring African Americans in trades where they were insufficiently represented. These hiring targets quickly spread to admissions policies at public universities. Beginning in the early 70s, women asked that sex be included in these affirmative action orders, in accordance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Mandating targets for women assumed that lack of female presence in some job categories signaled discrimination, itself a controversial assertion. Because they often applied to any institution or hiring place that received federal money, affirmative action mandates quickly moved women forward. They opened professional schools and elite colleges to women, and over the heated objections of many trade unions, they opened jobs in male trades as well. Virtually no women had been licensed plumbers in 1970. Their numbers crept up to 2% of the trade by 1975. Only 2% of carpenters had been female. Their proportion increased to 4%. Numbers in the professions increased far more dramatically. Within a decade and a half, the percentage of women architects increased from 3% to nearly 19% of the total. Women doctors more than doubled from 10% to 22% of all doctors. The percentage of women lawyers grew from 4% to 23% of the national total. The percentage of female engineers went from less than 1% to nearly 9%. The percentage of female college faculty from 28% to 42% of all faculty. Women flooded into the Ivy League schools that had for so many years excluded them. Yale and Princeton in 1969, Brown and Dartmouth in 1972, Harvard merged with Radcliffe in 1977. The numbers may be boring, but the idea and practice of affirmative action had astronomical significance in changing notions about where women belonged and what they might accomplish.